back to another CSRM podcast. I am Andrew Fouts. I'm the Director of Digital Resource Development here at CSRM, and we are finishing up the first part of our series on technology and ministry, and specifically on podcasting. We've talked the past few weeks on things like why podcasting is important, why videos are important for ministries. Talked about the need for these kind of things on the internet as well as in our churches and our communities. We've talked about what we need to put in them with the content. We talked about the time commitments and the commitment to uploading consistently, things like that. We've also talked about the credibility factor, that we as a church need to keep our credibility online just like we do in the church itself. And then we also talked last time on how much it actually is going to cost you to do this, and we found that it's actually can be as cheap as you want it to be, or as expensive as you want it to be, depending on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how much you're wanting to do it. So today we're going to end our podcast section on podcasting and actually talk about some tips, some tools, some misunderstandings on podcasts, and then also some things that we've learned here at CSRM from doing this the past few years. One of the first things and this is a misunderstanding, churches like to record their sermons, which they should. They like to film their sermons, which they should, and want to put it online. All good. There's places to do that, but do not label your sermons as podcasts. That's not what they are. They are sermons. They need to be set apart as sermons. The podcasts are more for discussion, are more for correction, those sort of things, not necessarily for the preaching aspect. The sermons need to be recognized as sermons. This is something that your pastor has prayed over, that your pastor has worked on, that your pastor has been asking the Spirit for help on, that he has been, that's been touching him for a while, that he's feeling the need to speak on, and it's being done so from the authority of the pastor and the preacher at that time. That is not what the podcasts are for. The podcasts are supposed to start discussion. They're supposed to be stuff that honestly people can argue about, that people can debate about, that can cause people to start to talk. We use the phrase within CSRM as we want God's theology. That's what these kind of podcasts are for. Your sermons need to be recognized as sermons. This is something that the pastor has spoken on, and this is coming straight from the pulpit, and it needs to be recognized as such. The podcasts, they can be done in a much more light way. They're meant to be ways for people to engage, to air out grievances, to air out, guilt, to air out those big questions that we talked about with content. The sermons are not content for podcasts. Your podcast can talk through the sermons, with the integrating ministry stuff, and even within the Taekwondo stuff. We heard from Tammy Forsyth as well as Heath Woolman about the idea of using your sport leagues and your devotionals in the sport leagues to reiterate or to prepare people for the lesson they're going to hear in Sunday school on Sunday or on Wednesday night or whatever night that may be. That's a great option for the podcast as a way to go further in on the stuff that was spoken on from the pulpit. But what's spoken on from the pulpit needs to be left as this is the sermon. We have a sermon library. We have all this kind of stuff. The podcast should be separate from that. Another thing that you need to understand, we talked about this before with your audience, but this is something that, again, people don't necessarily recognize, and we didn't necessarily recognize at first either here at CSRM, is that your videos are going to be viewed by a large number of people. Some of them are in your mission field, some of them aren't. That's great. That's exactly how it should be. My wife listens to the Apologia Studios podcast called Cultish, and one of the things that they talked about, and the one that she was listening to this morning even, was this idea of a lady that was going to one of these churches that they were talking about within the cult movement and the New Age movement. She found Christ through the online documentary American Gospel. She was going there to refute it. She was not part of the intended audience of that movie, and yet she found Christ through it. That's awesome. That's what these types of ministries can do. That's the advantage of being online, is you're not limited, and you don't have a block radius of people that actually are going to listen to you. Also be aware, though, that means that you're going to deal with what we call trolls on the internet. You're going to have people that are going to come start trying to poke holes in your ministry, start trying to throw stuff at you, start trying to debate you online and draw you into stuff you don't need to be messing with. Be aware that that kind of stuff can happen. It will happen. But again, if we're talking credibility, we don't want to engage in any kind of activity that's going to cause us to lose the credibility that we have as the church. Along those same lines, just like we talk about with Sunday mornings, don't let the gimmick overtake your doctrine. Again, the phrase that we use here is, we want God's theology, not our own theology. We need to make sure that we're putting that out there online, that this is not our opinion, this is what God has spoken, this is what the scriptures say, this is how we are supposed to do this kind of stuff. I talked about it on the audio and the visual podcast last week, since we had two separate ones. If you're trying to reach my generation, the millennial generation, or the generation after us, what you're going to find is that the gimmick is not going to bring us in, and it's not even going to keep us there if it did bring us in. The doctrine, the consistency, the story of the gospel is what's going to keep us drawn in. Everybody thinks it's the gimmick. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way it's going to be, and that's a big mistake on the part of the church in terms of both on Sunday mornings and also online. I'm able to do a bunch of stuff with this video. I can make it look like I'm in the mountains. I can make it look like I'm falling off a cliff for the entire 15 minutes I'm talking. I can do, I can glitch in and out. I can do all the filters, all that other kind of stuff. But that's not going to be as effective as me just straight up sharing my story in terms of the way that the audience is going to understand it. Another big one, and this is one that goes for everybody, don't get caught stealing or plagiarizing. First of all, don't steal anything yourself. Second of all, don't plagiarize anything anyway. It's not a good option, and it does lose credibility within the church. A lot of the information that I've given you guys is not stuff that is my own stuff. It's come from different sources that I've shared throughout. Guys like Bryce Johnson helped us out with the Apple stuff, which you should go check out his podcast, Unpacking It. The guys at Pro Church Tools, Brady Shearer and the gang over there, provide a lot of good information, and some of the graphics even that we used. Even some of the just the general understanding of the stuff is stuff that comes out of Tom Rainer, his podcasts on church revitalization and church resourcing. Some of this is stuff that I've taken from Dr. Linville with some of his theology books on sports ministry, and then some of it is my own stuff. Don't get caught plagiarizing, don't get caught stealing. First of all, YouTube is going to shut you down if you are consistently stealing other people's stuff and putting it on there. It doesn't look good if the church gets their Facebook page shut down by YouTube for stealing. That's not going to draw people in on Sunday morning or online. It's not a good witness. It's not going to keep your credibility up. The other side of this is if we as Christians are saying that we are a church, a universal church, and then we're going and stealing and plagiarizing other people's stuff, we're not working together as a team. Who cares whose idea it was, as long as the information is getting out there and it's accurate and it's God ordained and it's God glorifying? Why does it matter whose idea it was? Give them credit for the fact that they found it. Royalty-free stuff is an awesome gift of the internet. You can go online and get free music, you can get free beats, you can get free graphics, free glitches, all that kind of stuff, all for free with no copyright infringement, anything like that, no licensing required, and be able to use it. Most of the intro music that we use here within CSRM podcasts is royalty-free stuff that we find on the internet. Beats, things like that. Be careful though, you got to look and see, is this something that gives us creative license, meaning that if we mess around with it, then it's no longer a breach of contract? Is this stuff that is, you need to buy the licensing to use it? It's still royalty free because you're claiming it as your own, but you're not actually, it's not actually free. Make sure you understand the licensing side of these sort of things. We're going to talk more about that when we talk the online marketing side of this. The other thing you can do that's really fun, and again, it bridges some of those gaps between the different ministries in your church. Go find the kid in the youth group that is learning to be a producer and have him build you an intro set. Go find the aspiring artist within your church that wants a chance to be able to get their music online. Go to your music minister and have them just play you something real simple that you can record and put on there. I've got 3 good friends that are up and coming Christian rappers that they send me stuff that I'm able to use. Free Boy Louisiana is the one that did the beat before this one, the song Getting Money. Ray Emanuel has sent me some stuff to use a couple of times for other things I've done with him. You can do this kind of stuff with still being within budget, still cost effective, still free in some cases, but without losing the credibility of stealing or plagiarizing other people's works. The last thing we want to give you guys is a couple resources to go and find to either, one, do this kind of stuff on your own to get some different things, or the other side of this is you can go and learn more about things like how to actually reach people online through prochurchtools.com. That's Brady Shearer and them. If you're looking for more information on some of the equipment that you can get, you can use, again, I recommend just going to Amazon and typing this in. Or you can go to, it's www.podcastinsights.com/podcast-equipment. They have a full list and price ranges and everything like that. You can go to our podcast, the CSRM podcast, which is found on the CSRM YouTube channel, as well as SoundCloud, and we are still hoping that by the time we're releasing this, we are on Apple, hopefully. Other good resources of examples of content, things like that. Again, our friend Bryce Johnson over at Unpacking It Ministries. Very good examples of how to use people's stories and use that as a gospel platform. Tom Rayner, he does a lot of church resourcing, church planning, church revitalization stuff. You can go and look again. The Pro Church Daily is the podcast that's released by Pro Church Tools. There's a lot of these different aspects and different resources you can use to be able to reach people that you're not going to be able to reach unless you are online. Now, this is the end of the podcasting part of this, but we're still going to be talking technology and ministry in the upcoming episodes, and so we hope you'll stick around. Next time we're going to talk online marketing. The following week after that, we're going to talk social media and how to actually use things like Facebook and Instagram, and again, YouTube, which is the big one right now. So drop some comments on us in YouTube, SoundCloud, visit our website, csrm.org. You can contact us there. We hope that this was at least helpful, and hopefully we'll be able to start listening to you guys here in the near future.